Well, I'm sure this has happened to you. Maybe not to Adelia, but we have you ever found yourself when you're driving or walking maybe in the woods or something, and you come to somewhere unfamiliar and a crossroads, and then in modern day times, the sat-nav crashes out, and old day times, the map wasn't quite as it said in the book because there's something else happened, and you stand at the crossroads and you think, which way? There's several options to go here. One may look quicker, one may look vaguely familiar, and another disappears into the distance and you think, I don't see anything there, and we may get really on the wrong path. So you stop, or you at least slow down, and you think, well, which way should I go? Life is full of crossroads like that, moments where we simply cannot carry on the way we carried on before, where we have to stop, take stock, and decide which path to follow. They come in our personal lives, in the lives of our families, in work life, and indeed in church life, and the life of every church, including All Saints. The prophet Jeremiah paints this picture of crossroads so vividly in chapter 6, where he says, "This is what the Lord says, stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths, ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls." Notice the four movements that he mentions. He says, stand, look, ask, and then follow. It's important to hear what he's really saying, because he doesn't encourage God's people to invent a whole new direction. Quite the opposite. Israel had wandered away from God, got caught up in what they were choosing to do, and Jeremiah was calling them back to the ancient paths of faithfulness, of trust, of obedience, and of a love of God. And I think that is not a dictation or an instruction. It's an invitation to rediscover what God had always intended for them. And I think it's a wonderful picture for the church, the broader church today, but specifically for All Saints. We are at the crossroads, a time when the church needs to assess where next, what are we going to do, where are we going? Not because we've done anything wrong. I think we've done quite well in God's calling and following what he's done in the time I've been here, in the time it's gone before. I mean, the church is still here 100 plus years later. We build on what has gone before. I just can't judge what's gone before because I wasn't here. We can ask Anne. Anne's not there. Anne's there. There. It's not because we've done anything wrong, but often we walk in a path and we've achieved so much with the Lord and followed his ways that we forget to stop. We just get in this rut of doing the same things, and we go down that same path. And it may not be relevant anymore. It may have veered off. We may have veered off slightly. We may have got involved and so focused on things that that's not what the Lord's saying continue with. We don't know unless we stop and we ask him and we listen. We can get lost in the busyness and our own agendas and veer off. So it's a good point to stand at the crossroads and set our eyes on where God is and where he is leading us for this next season, and we walk in that together. Vision is not about chasing the next biggest trend. It's not trying to become something we're not. I said to the others, if we hear later on that the Lord says we need to be a 10,000 people mega church by December, I'm going to suggest we need to go back and listen a little bit, because it's kind of not practical unless he has a real miracle. And I'm not sure that's a miracle, but if that is his intention, then he will make it happen, I guess. But as we look at the new vision, or the reinvigorated vision for the next season, we shouldn't be asking those things. What we should be asking is, Lord, who are you calling us to be? Who are you calling us to be? It's rediscovering our deepest identity as people and as his church is found in listening carefully and moving in the direction he calls us to walk. He leads everything we do. And the gospel shows us, the Matthew reading, the Gainer read, shows us what we do at Crossroads, the choice we have at a crossroads. And the poor disciples, they're learning, right? And they're looking at the crowd, and all they see are problems. All they see is what's going to go wrong. And they look and they say to him, well, it's getting late. We're in this remote place, away from everywhere. There's nothing around here. We haven't got enough with what we've got to feed all these 5,000 men plus families and that. I mean, even Costco would be hard-pressed to provide that, wouldn't it? And they look at that and they say, send the people away. Let them go find their own food. But Jesus looks at exactly the same crowd and sees something completely different. He looks out and he sees possibility and opportunity. He simply says, you give them something to eat. You give them something to eat. And when the disciples look around, all they've got is 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. But you know what Jesus sees? 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish, placed in God's hands. And when we place things in God's hands, he does miracles. You see, the churches we can become like the disciples here. We have a parish of 12,000 people. Do you believe that? In our parish of All Saints, around about 12,000 people to meet the needs of spiritually. That looks too big for us, doesn't it? And we can easily come up with the excuses. We first look at what we don't have, right? We definitely don't have enough volunteers for that. We don't have enough money. We definitely don't have enough time in today's society. We don't have enough young families. We're all growing older. We don't have enough. And all we look at, and every angle we look at, is not enough, not enough, not enough. We can't do it. But Jesus begins with a different question to us. What do you have? What do we have? Because what matters isn't how much we've got. What matters is whether we're willing to place it in his hands. At a crossroads, it's very easy to think that the answer is there in a perfect idea or a perfect solution, persuading everyone to agree with that one thing. But that is rarely how God works. Henry Nouwen writes this: community is the place where the person you least want to live with always is. It's a wonderfully honest observation, and don't be in denial that it's like that in the church, that we're all holy and good. We're people, we're human, and we have challenges, don't we, in that. The churches has never had and should never have people who are all thinking alike and in all agreement and see everything from the same perspective. We'd miss a whole lot of what God's calling us to do if we all saw the same thing, but for him. That's the thing we should be united on, and seeing the same thing. The church is made up of people that Christ calls together. We are not here by accident. We are here because we are called to be here. And that means our task today, as I'm going to ask you to input into the next season's vision, isn't to discover what I've been praying about and what I think the Lord said to me. And it's not doing it for you either. It's what God is saying to us together about his vision. What is God's vision for All Saints? And it isn't everyone agreeing with one person. It will be the beauty of bringing our ideas together and see what bubbles up as an idea in a creative way, and to see where God is leading us. And that's exactly what Jeremiah is telling God's people to do. To stop, to look, to ask, and then together to walk in his ways and follow him. And it's exactly what the disciples had to learn. They all brought different perspectives. The gospel's full of them. All brought different perspectives. They all had different questions. They all had quite a lot of different doubts and failures. But what they did that made all the difference was they placed it in the hands of Jesus. They brought all of that and placed it in the hands of Jesus. And that's where the miracle began. Feeding 5,000 men plus everybody else that came with them from 5 loaves and 2 fish. And then still having 12 basket loads left over. An abundance of what he gives when we give it to him. And as we listen today to God and ask him where he may be leading us, we remember that we don't start from scratch. We have a vision statement that we're not going to change, because I think it does encompass everything. Love first. Love Jesus and love one another. We don't really need more than that. Everything should flow from that. Love first, love Jesus, love one another. It's not a slogan. It's not something we can put to an advertising jingle. Well, I guess we could. I don't know. It's our compass. It's what directs us, directs our behaviors. And so when we are looking at the ideas everybody brings, we're going to be looking, as we listen to Jesus, for the things that help us love Jesus more, that direct us in ways of worship and of learning more about him, that we can be transformed. We're going to look at the things that brings Jesus to the community. We're going to look at the things that helps us love one another more sincerely, that helps us serve more generously. Because then we're probably listening to the right voice. What we don't want to be doing is listening to anything that takes our eyes off of Jesus, that causes division, that is our own agenda, or that causes so much busyness we forget why we're doing it. Because the church has to be different. You can have loads of social clubs out there, as much as we love being with each other and having fun together, and we'll still continue to do so. There's plenty of other charities meeting needs of the community. The difference we bring is Jesus. And if he's not at the center of it, then we're listening to the wrong voice of what we're doing. If we're not doing it for Jesus and his glory, and if nothing else but that happens, then we shouldn't be doing it. Because the center of who we are as a church never changes, because Jesus never changes. In Hebrews it says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It's us that changes. We change. And that's a choice. We have to keep our hearts and our love for Jesus alight. It can so easily flicker for any one of us if we're not intent on reading the Bible and praying, in loving through the difficulty. There was a lovely thing in Lectio this week that we should have a wild love for Jesus, like the woman with the perfume that poured it out so extravagantly. I like that. Having a wild love. Imagine All Saints having a wild love for Jesus. Just an abandonment to love Jesus. Because it's the response of our love to his love that is so much greater. That he gave his life for each of us and every person in our parish and wider, of course. So may we not be like those that the prophet Isaiah described in chapter 29, who come near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. It's our hearts that will really define our actions and how we behave. So let's be people with hearts on fire, and our vision should lead us in all those ways. It should lead all of us who already know him, and it should lead us to draw people to the attractive thing of his love. Those who don't yet know him. And that's all that matters. For us as a church, that is all that matters. We do it for Jesus, or there's no point. Everything we are, and out of that, everything we do and offer and serve in, comes from the fact that we love Jesus. So in a moment, I'm going to give you an opportunity to contribute to some ideas. And I recognize that as we sit in silence and pray, you will have ideas and that, but you may have some more, when you're praying on Wednesday morning. We're going to leave these up for a couple of weeks. You can also email them if you want to, because some people wrote them down and are going to go and pray and write on that. So we'll leave it for a couple of weeks. By the end of August, we'll gather them all up. Vision Sunday is on the 11th of October, so we'll be praying around. We'll look at it as a PCC, and we'll see what we think the Lord's calling us to do and the path that we're going on. So when we come to giving ideas, what I don't want you to think is I don't have a fully formed idea. And I've got this harebrained idea, but I have no idea how we will do that. 5 loaves and 2 fish, right? It's a harebrained idea, right? But put that idea from one of the disciples who said that's what they could find with Jesus' idea, and look what happens, right? You may have part of an idea, and somebody else has parts of an idea, and you never know how God's going to bring those together. And do think of practical things too. So if you think about something maybe for the community or a group of people that are excluded or something like that, and you think, well, that's not very godly because I know there's just a need of, X doing something, like a food bank, giving food to people, doesn't feel that godly. Don't worry about that. Under Mission and Community, do the things where you see the need in the community, because we can pray into that. And today is not to produce a finished plan. Today is just think big, dream big, pray big, and come up with some ideas, because every contribution will matter. It doesn't mean that we will do everything written down, but it does mean that as ideas come and we see crossover, we did it at the prayer meeting not this week's one, but last week, and we had visitors to our prayer meeting, had never been before, and as people prayed and put the things in, there were crossovers of people, the Lord, them hearing him say the same thing, and then you start to realize, well, this is what the Lord's saying, and this is where the Lord's directing us. So don't be afraid to put anything down. You don't have to sign your name to it, unless you want to, of course. And obviously then, we're not going to take every idea, because we may exhaust ourselves. We're going to take the ones that the Lord leads us in for this season. It doesn't mean also that idea isn't for the next season. I can show you a whole lot of things that 5 years ago we sat down at a vision day and haven't done yet. And maybe we'll do them in the next 5 years, I don't know, in that. So what I'm going to ask you to do is offer what God has placed in your hands. What is your fish? I said to them earlier, your fish may only be whitebait, but whitebait's quite a tasty dish in the pub, right? He'll give you something. He will give you something to give. What is that he's placed in your hands, that together, as we place all of our things in God's hands, he can use in that. So let's stand, let's look, let's ask, and then we'll walk together and follow him, and it will be fun. We've had lots of fun in 5 years, haven't we? We've had lots of great times in 5 years in seeing what God has done. And I don't know, nor as do you, not know where the road's going to lead. And that's exciting. We didn't know where the Lord was going to lead us when I came. We didn't know the Lord was going to lead you when Gareth came, or David came, or whoever came before. You don't know what the Lord's going to do in this season. But what I do know is everything we do is worship first, And then we do that. We've got a sermon series coming up in the autumn, Ezra and Nehemiah, worship first and then rebuilding in that. So I'm going to read because you won't see all the posters. This one, I've always got to have something that doesn't fit in, don't I? This one, if you could ask God one question, we are going to have some theology evenings with guest speakers over the next year, 3 or 4. We're thinking... and already been discussing with people like Jane Williams, John Lennox, and a couple of other, Hannah Steele was one. What we're trying to find out is what are you interested in finding out about? You know, is it AI? Is it suffering? Because those are 2 I think will come up. But there may be other things that we can get theologians to come and speak and have an evening with us and trust me, speak on our level so that we can all understand in that. So if you've got a pressing question, write it down because that will help guide who we ask and also guide them in what to say and what you would like to hear from. Then we've got worship and prayer over here. Now, I have put sheets on each table to just prompt you, but this is about prayer meetings, Sunday worship, quiet days maybe, sacred space, creativity. We've got discipleship and growth. If someone can tell me which pillar that's on. Discipleship and growth. There, the back pillar over there. How do we help people grow as followers of Jesus, including ourselves? We've got some connect groups. Do we grow them? Do we do alpha, small groups, theology evenings, spiritual practices, mentoring? I don't know. Then we've got children, young people, and families, which is just here at the font. How do we nurture the next generation? What is it we want with our next generation? Who do we want to be for the next generation that we've got? Mission and community, I think, is where you are, Zoe. That is all. What does our community need of the church? What do they need of the church, right? And that can be anything. It can be in the care homes. It could be in people struggling with certain diagnoses. Like, I don't know. You are in the community. Bring it back and tell us what is needed in the community. Pastoral care and belonging. How do we become a church where everybody is known and known that they're loved and can belong here in some way or shape or form? Have a think about that. And then I think that's at the back over there. I think this is serving. Is this... Yeah, areas to serve in, gifts you may have, gifts that you think other people have and they're not offering. It's always good to rat on someone. And put them down over there. And think bigger, you know, think about how do we train up people? How are we going to, what's succession planning looking like as we all get older, right? And I put myself in that. Who's taking over? You know, when we are called to other things, is what I'm going to say, because there's no retirement in the kingdom. And then we've got eco-church and caring for the environment. I put it on the recycling because I thought that's where you all go anyway, and you would have all gone with your blister packs this morning over there to do that. Have I covered all of them? I think so. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to pray. We're going to be still, and then just for 30 seconds, whatever, and then get up and walk around and offer what you have today. And we leave them up. No small idea, no wrong idea. Remember.